This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Rescuers in Beirut still searching through rubble after blast left hundreds dead. South Africa rolls out locally made ventilators for COVID-19 patients. And over 3,000 Tunisian irregular migrants reach Italian shores in less than 5 weeks. Hello and thank you for joining us on Africa Live. I am Peninah Karibe, also lined up this hour. South Africa's state weapons manufacturer ordered to pay full staff wages before Friday. And we focus on strength and agility sports in our special series on the postponed Tokyo Olympic Games. We begin in Lebanon in the aftermath of an explosion that rocked the capital city of Beirut on Tuesday afternoon. At least 100 people were killed and 4,000 others injured. The blast occurred at the port area in warehouses storing highly explosive material. President Michel Aoun said 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate used in fertilizers and bombs had been stored for 6 years without safety measures. The president has called for an emergency cabinet meeting on Wednesday and has said a 2-week state of emergency should be declared. Lebanon will observe an official period of mourning for 3 days. Officials say 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate had been stored at the port for 6 years without many safety measures in place. Here's a little more on ammonium nitrate, which is extremely explosive. It's been used by terrorist organizations across the world to inflict maximum damage. Just to give you an idea of the scale of the devastation it can cause, in 1995, the Oklahoma City bomber used around 2 tons of ammonium nitrate to partially bring down one building and damage more than 250 others nearby. The explosion killed over 160 people. It was also used in the 2016 Brussels airport attack, which killed 35 people. Ammonium nitrate is also a fertilizer used by many farmers, but when mixed with diesel fuel, it forms an explosive with more than half the force of dynamite. Now, according to the Italian Interior Ministry and the authorities in Tunis, at least 3,000 Tunisian irregular migrants have reached Italian shores and the island of Lampedusa in less than 5 weeks. The COVID-19 crisis did not discourage women, children and elderly people from making the risky journey on makeshift boats to reach Europe.
The Defense and Interior Ministries in Tunisia have warned against the increasing wave of irregular migration in recent weeks. President Qais Said visited the main departure points at the ports of Sfax and Mahdia. He declared that irregular migration is a domestic problem.
The Tunisian state must put to an end the economic and social reasons for irregular migration. People are risking their lives to reach European shores. I know that you lack the logistical means to stop this wave of migration. We'll make sure that you get what you need to thwart irregular migration attempts.
The regional authorities have thwarted dozens of irregular migration attempts in the coastal regions of Sfax, Mahdia and Kirkana. The Marine and the National Guards organized a campaign in the Mediterranean and within the country's maritime borders to control the wave of irregular migration during this period of the year, which favors this activity due to good weather conditions.
More and more Tunisian citizens are risking their lives at sea. They are pursuing a dream which is in reality a nightmare because they could die in this misadventure. The state does not allow such irresponsible behavior. Our Marine and National Guard forces are deployed to block any irregular migration attempt.
The Interior Minister added that the solution to the current crisis must not be focused on the security aspect solely.
Our message to Tunisian youth is that hope is still possible in Tunisia. Dying in the Mediterranean will not solve their problems. I've talked to some illegal migrants who were saved by the Coast Guard. The majority are 17 and 18-year-old. They are desperate. Illegal migrants don't see any future at home. Tunisia must provide jobs for its youth and improve their social and economic conditions.
The Tunisian government announced that the logistical and human resources available to coast guards in the regions of Sfax, Mahdia and Nabil were increased as part of the fight against irregular migration. Authorities have also urged the European Union to support the North African states' campaign in the Mediterranean. Following the 2011 social unrest in Tunisia, over 25,000 people reached the Italian island of Lampedusa in just 4 weeks. Now that the North African state faces unprecedented social and economic problems, authorities in Tunis and Rome want to prevent a similar scenario from happening this summer. Abdel Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
To South Africa, where the first batch of locally made ventilators has rolled off the assembly line at a plant in Cape Town. The equipment will be sent to hospitals to help treat severely ill COVID-19 patients. Travis Andrews has more on this with his report.
It's called the CSIR Life, and it's a new South African designed ventilator which is meant to save the lives of those severely affected by COVID-19. The machine is being assembled by Acacia Medical, and it's a non-invasive continuous positive airway pressure device, a unit that the government believes will have the greatest chance of saving lives. It's ordered 20,000 to build up capacity in hospitals who weren't able to source them from overseas markets.
So our involvement with the CSIR Life CPAP project began a little bit over a month ago when we were approached about the possibility of assembling the device and patient circuits for the National Ventilator Project on behalf of CSIR. So Acacia recognized fairly early that this was a national imperative, and we've been happy to assist in getting this project into production.
The ventilators will be used to supply oxygen to ill patients in the country, who currently make up around 5% of overall cases. While final assembly is taking place in Cape Town, some components are being imported, including from China, and production of the assembly line is being stepped up.
We have 150 units, which are ready to basically go into the sterilizer. They are going to be sterilized during the course of tonight. It is our intention by the end of this week to have approximately 1,000. In terms of the order quantities, at this moment in time, we are looking to produce 10,000 of the units, but that could go up as demand requires.
South Africa's Department of Trade and Industry is leading the efforts to have these ventilators built, and it comes as the number of positive cases hit more than 500,000. COVID-19 has not only struck South Africa hard, but it's also affecting the rest of the African continent as well. And that has put the ventilator being manufactured at this facility in high demand.
We actually do believe that once the local demands have been met, we'll move into the next phase, which is producing units for relief required in other African countries that have been affected by the pandemic as we have.
When our production continues in earnest of these life-saving machines that will play an important role in dealing COVID-19 a fatal blow. Travis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
Hungry fishermen and angry hippos are fighting for survival in Kenya's Lake Naivasha. Animal attacks on humans have increased as rising water levels push them closer towards human settlements. Communities are calling on the Kenya Wildlife Service to help mitigate the emerging human-wildlife crisis. Nick Mudimba has the details.
Early every morning, these men get set to their fishing nets to go fishing in dangerous territory filled by violent hippos. They look happy and ready for the next fishing mission, but don't be deceived by the smiles on their faces. It's a survival battle. In Africa, of all large animals, hippos are the biggest killers of humans. They take no prisoners. With raised water levels, vegetation has diminished pastures for the killer mammals. The conflict just got to another level. Hungry fishermen and angry hippos. Population of different fish species has rapidly increased, making it easier for food fishes. But that's when the hippos strike.
I met the hippo just as I was about to start fishing. I had my equipment on one side and my clothes on the other. The hippo charged towards me and my left hand was fully inside its jaws. I told myself that this animal can't kill me in broad daylight. I had to fight it off by covering its eyes with a jacket, and I took off.
Charles Kibati was fishing just on the shores of the lake. His story was a close shave. He hadn't rattled the animal, but he faced a ruthless and violent hippo which charged at him.
I was attacked by the hippo just outside the lake. The hippo came from nowhere. It was deep. It saw me, though I didn't see it. At that time, I was able-bodied. The hippo was very fast and it caught my hand. It twisted me twice and I fell in a ditch. It looked for me around and left the scene.
For Cyrus Smoke, he had started fishing at 5 a.m. A hippo pulled him out of the boat by grabbing his hand. The injuries he sustained conspicuously reminds him of the deadly ordeal.
Most of the time they attack when they have little calves. They defend them by getting rid of you.
Our efforts to reach the Kenya Wildlife Service for the animal-human conflict resulted in a statement insisting they have put in place elaborate management approaches to prevent and mitigate human-wildlife conflict, as well as managing problem animals. These include erection of wildlife barriers, mapping of hotspots areas for strategic deployments, translocation of problem animals, use of collars, especially on the endangered species, for monitoring and conservation education. Now, the risks the fishermen are putting themselves here is mind-boggling. They just hope that the authorities will come to their aid and prevent the frequent attacks because the hippos are jealous and territorial. Nick Mudimba, CGTN, Naivasha, Kenya.
You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a short break. Coming up. In our continuing series, Made in Africa, we feature Adam Store Studios in South Africa, where 80 painters and sculptors transform African art into ornamental pieces.
Darum ko nagkain itang ana nuko komenta ko ata isesa ismai kamangay kama.
The finals for the Public Benefit International Challenge are currently underway in Beijing. The contest challenges youth in Africa and China to come up with innovative ideas to tackle pressing issues in Africa. PBIC was founded in 2017 by the China-Africa Business Council and is supported by the United Nations. The initiative is to promote exchanges between young people in China and Africa. One of the competing teams is called Chilinka, a group of 5 students from China working on a water project for Sierra Leone. They came up with a waterfall idea that can help improve access to potable water. At least 2.9 million people in Sierra Leone do not have clean water, decent toilets, or good hygiene. And that's according to NGO WaterAid. Decades of civil war and the Ebola virus has devastated Sierra Leone and hindered economic progress. To talk more about addressing water shortage and technology, we have with us David Gatende, the Group CEO at Davis & Shatleaf, a leading water and energy solutions company in Eastern Central Africa. He joins us via Skype from Nairobi. David, thank you very much for joining us. So, any project about water goes straight to the hearts and minds of nearly every African. What's the biggest challenge in getting each household dependable and safe water supply?
Well, a few things come to mind. And first of all, it is the availability of the solution. If it's a water pump, which is what Davis & Shatleaf focuses on, then you need to be able to get it. And so if you have an outlet near you, a store, a stockist, or somebody who can provide the equipment, that is excellent. Also, it needs to be affordable because many households in Africa tend to be quite marginalized and poor. And so if it's not affordable, it's out of reach. And also, if the solution is sustainable, it's a big advantage because then they haven't got to spend money to keep it going. And so those three things, I think, are very important.
Are there technologies today that can assure a community of regular and affordable water?
Yes, there are. And perhaps the most obvious one is the use of solar. And we're very fortunate in Africa, and particularly in Kenya, I must say. By the way, I have a trivia question for you, Penny. I don't know if you know how many countries in the world straddle the equator. I'll answer it for you. It's only 13. And Kenya and Uganda and DRC and a few others in Africa are actually on both sides of the equator. So the availability of solar power, which is free, it is sustainable, and it is reliable, is a very obvious use of technology. There's another thing that I think is one of the world's best kept secrets, and that is the fact that solar power, the price of the PV module, the photovoltaic module, has become cheaper and cheaper. And it is now today a fraction of what it used to cost a number of years ago. And so it has become very affordable, and many large farms, institutions, and governments now have cottoned onto this and are using solar energy as a technology. And we can also convert it using inverter, because we get DC, direct current from the sun, and we convert it to AC that we can use to power all kinds of implements. And particularly in this case, we're talking about water pumps. So they can now be used affordably, and the process of changing the energy into what is more useful is very easy and affordable. And we have perfected this solution in our company at Davis & Shercliffe.
And finally, David, what lessons can African nations draw from developed economies like China on dealing with water shortage?
Well, China is very good. It's been the production of the world. It's been like the workshop, producing all kinds of equipment. And so they do, because they do that, their price per unit is very, very cheap and affordable. And so they've made products affordable, which the world is very grateful for. I think the other thing that would be important is storage. And we always say that we tend in Africa to go from not having any water, we have a famine or a drought, and it can be very serious, and then we are being washed away by floods. And so the importance of having storage is very, very important, and I think the Chinese lead the way. And if African governments were able to do that, it would be very good. And they would say, for instance, that every household should have 1,000 liters per adult. And I think having a plastic tank, whether you store rainwater that's rain harvested or water pan, it's all very good. And the Chinese do that very well. And the third thing is that the Chinese are very good at having public solutions rather than the focus on having private solutions. Here in our part of the world, we need more of that model where the government and the county governments and municipals are providing and making affordable water, which everyone needs, because we all know that water is life. So those are some lessons we can learn from China.
All right, David, thank you very much for those insights. David Gatendi, the Group CEO at Davis & Shercliffe. Well, refugees often face the risk of human trafficking as well as violence and sexual abuse. Samrawit, an Eritrean migrant, was held captive for nearly 2 years in Libya as she attempted to find a better life for herself. She was later evacuated to Rwanda, where she is receiving psychosocial care to help her heal from the trauma. Daniela Pearson brings us the details.
Samrawit was just 18 when it happened. She was abducted by human traffickers and faced a 2-year ordeal of torture and sexual abuse. This happened while she was searching for refuge while attempting to leave Eritrea. One of her close relatives had fled military conscription there, and she was afraid of conscription herself. The kidnappers took her to a town in Sudan, near the border with Libya.
When I remember that moment, I feel terrible. First, they took us by force on our way to the market. They told us we are going to Libya. Second, they raped us and threatened us with knives and guns.
She was later held for 2 months in a traffickers' camp in southeast Libya. Her captors demanded $6,000 for her freedom. After being bought and sold by different groups of smugglers, her family eventually paid twice that amount. This was to cover the ransom as well as a spot on a boat to Europe. However, Samrawit's troubles did not end there. Last July, smugglers attempted to cross the Mediterranean Sea with 350 migrants, including Samrawit. During their journey, their boat sank. Samrawit managed to swim for 8.5 hours until she was found by the Libyan Coast Guard. She was taken to a detention center in Libya until the UN eventually evacuated her and others to Rwanda a few months later. Migrants rescued from Libya now live in the Gashora Transit Center on the outskirts of the capital Kigali. Most come from Eritrea, Somalia and Sudan and have been given asylum seeker status. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
My family has been doing this artwork for the past 600 years.
My dream is to be the leading player in Africa in spice sector.
Nobody in the region consumes it. Even me cannot afford the vanilla cooking.
What we've created here is the elegance, the color, the celebration of life.
For 34 years, Ardmore Studios has crafted original ceramics that have provided income to feed many families in KwaZulu-Natal province in South Africa. Trained by Ardmore's founder, Faye Halstead, 80 painters and sculptors transform African art into ornamental pieces. Items have been sold by Christie's and Sotheby's. Despite its international success, it has remained true to its roots, trained and developed local artists as well as caring for a community hit hard by HIV/AIDS. Today, this studio is an institution in South Africa and continues to shape and change people's lives.
I was angry. I wanted to teach people, and I thought, well, if I can't teach privileged whites, I'm going to help people who don't have opportunity. My name is Faye Halstead. I grew up in Zimbabwe, and I came to study fine arts in South Africa. And I was lecturing. I majored in painting and started working in ceramics, and I was lecturing in Durban, and I lost my job. I was angry. I wanted to teach people, and I thought, well, if I can't teach privileged whites, I'm going to help people who don't have opportunity. And I started working with Bonnie and Chalanchali, our maid's daughter. It's been a fairy tale story. It's grown now to include about 80 people, and we live here at Caversham in KwaZulu-Natal. I didn't choose to make Ardmore so detailed and intricate. What we did by working with the Zulu culture is they have always created the most exquisite craft. This beautiful, colorful brand of Ardmore, I think what it is that this continent and this country is so rich in so much elegance, sophistication. It is inspiration for artists. Picasso, so many artists have been to Africa to get inspired. It's the rawness of it. And what we've created here for Ardmore is the elegance, the color, the celebration of life. And for me, that is what has been Ardmore's success. Through the years, we've just grown and grown and grown, and we've developed the most amazing work. I don't think there's anything like it in the world. And to see people start at Ardmore, I say, remember this day. They come, they've lost their parents from HIV, many of them have. We got hit hard with HIV, with the artists in 1985 was one of our first artists died, and we worked really hard with them, but in those days nobody wanted to talk about it. So many of my artists, we lost at least 40 wonderful, wonderful artists, including Bonnie. It was very painful to lose these artists at the time, and I took a very positive approach. I made a hospital at the studio, and I kept artists with me close. We nursed them. Now, since 2010, most of the artists are on antiretrovirals, and they've lived very well with being HIV positive, and we haven't lost one artist. My children grew up with Ardmore. My two daughters are very, very creative. They studied fine art, also in Pietermaritzburg University, and my son studied business. When he'd finished school, I said, you know, I can't really leave you much, but we could have fun starting a new business. And why don't we take these fabulous designs off the ceramics and turn them into fabric? And we started that business in about 10 years ago now. And it's been such a fun journey working with the kids, and my daughters are the designers. And in fact, in 2013, we were discovered by Hermès, the French wonderful luxury brand in Paris, and Catherine has designed the most exquisite scarves for them. And then also 2-3 years ago, we were discovered by Cole & Son in New York. Our work was discovered there, and we've produced the most fantastic and one of their most popular selling wallpaper designs that we did with them. And in fact, in 2021, we're going to launch this #2 collection. So that's very, very exciting. I think our worldwide success has come about because we've produced a new visual. It's a bit quirky, it's raw, it's naive, in a beautiful sense of life. This feeling of what we've achieved here, I cannot tell you what it feels like. I lie in bed at night and I go, sure, I've done something good, you know, something in my wildest dreams has happened, but it's come from hard work and dedication. What is my dream is to continue, to just see that once I'm gone, the Ardmore studio and the artists and their children have continuity, and to put steps and measures in place that they become self-reliant on me. So my visual is for me to be able to step back and to watch my teachings come out.
You're watching Africa Live. Coming up in business news, South Africa's state weapons manufacturer ordered to pay full staff wages before Friday. And Tanzania's June overnight millionaire in another lucky strike. South Africa's state defense firm Denel has been ordered by South Africa's Labour Court to pay workers outstanding salaries for May, June and July before Friday. Trade unions Solidarity and WASA took action against the firm after the weapons manufacturer failed to pay salaries in full. The company has struggled to pay staff wages amid a liquidity crisis aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Denel is one of a number of struggling state enterprises that the government has been keeping afloat with bailouts. The company is now expected to meet statutory obligations such as making payments to its employee pension fund, which it has also struggled to do in recent months. Africa's biggest supermarket chain Shoprite has disclosed that it is considering pulling out of Nigeria. The South African-owned retailer said it was looking at selling all or a majority stake of its operations in the country. Two other South African brands, clothing firms Mr. Price and Woolworths, have long left Nigeria. CGTN's Deju Badmas has more.
It was a big deal when it opened its first outlet in Nigeria in 2005. Literally everyone wanted to shop at Shoprite. The retail outlet basically drove other existing local retailers underground with its eye-catching stores and cheaper prices. But 15 years on, 26 additional outlets, Shoprite is now calling it a day in Nigeria. The South African retail giant says lockdown restrictions because of coronavirus had affected its operations in 14 African countries, including Nigeria, with sales declining by 1.4% in those markets. But some experts say the retail outlet's troubles in Nigeria go beyond that.
We already have Nigerian supermarkets that even Shoprite themselves included in the reasons why they found that the market was not more so profitable, that increasing competition in the market had made it less profitable. And that competition is largely Nigerian-owned supermarkets. They're largely, in fact, you may only count one supermarket chain that is not Nigerian, that is giving ShopRite all that competition to the point of making them want to leave.
Whatever the case, economic analysts say the decision by the retail giant to pull out of Africa's biggest market does not paint a positive picture for Nigeria.
It sends a negative signal to the investing community globally. So it has a negative or adverse signaling effect, for Nigeria as an investment destination.
ShopRite has been by far the biggest retail supermarket in Nigeria for the past decade, opening outlets in several Nigerian cities. But in the last 5 years, it's faced some very stiff competition from some local retailers who have since bounced back after their initial displacement by the retail giant. There's also the issue of repatriation of funds. With scarcity of forex in Nigeria, foreign investors have found it quite challenging repatriating funds to their home country.
From the point of view of economic management, we need to worry about our foreign exchange policy, because it is not going to be easy to be able to retain foreign investors here or to attract new investors if you continue to have challenges with our foreign exchange policy.
The exit of ShopRite might not necessarily mean the exit of that brand name from Nigeria. The firm says it is in talks with potential investors. Now, depending on how that process goes, that potential investor might decide to keep the name as a franchise, because that name has come to mean a lot for many of its customers in this country. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
At the same time, the retail chain has disclosed plans to lay off 115 workers and close its second branch in Kenya. This marks the second cut in less than 5 months, citing reduced flow of shoppers. ShopRite, which opened its first store in Kenya in 2018, has informed the Workers' Union of the closure of the City Mall branch in Kenya's coastal city of Mombasa. Also in Kenya, Nairobi's Dandora dump site has been the center of commerce for many who are struggling to make ends meet. Among them are hairdressers who scavenge the dump site for hair extensions to be reintroduced back to the market. CGTN's Terry Wangari has the story.
Julia Wanja has been selling second-hand hair for over a decade. She says there is more demand now since many people cannot afford new extensions.
I started in this hair business in 2008 by plaiting second-hand hair. If you come with new hair or second-hand hair, I weave it on you. So I realized that many people like to use second-hand hair because of the economic state. Clients come with second-hand hair because it is way cheaper than new hair.
She regularly picks her way delicately through piles of food waste, discarded masks, rubber gloves and other rubbish at Nairobi's Dandora dump site, looking for used hair extensions she can clean and resell to customers.
You pick the hair according to the state you find it in and decide whether it's good or not good. Some of you just see and know that they are not good enough and you leave them. When the hair gets here, also the customers pick what they like.
The pandemic means fewer clients with less money, and she's cutting down on costs by cleaning and reselling hair from the dump site.
First thing after getting the hair from wherever I get it is to wash the hair and make it neat. But when a client picks it, I always wash the hair again when they are here to their satisfaction, because it gets even cleaner when I go piece by piece as opposed to washing it in a bunch. So I prefer a customer to pick and I wash again.
Wanja says she washes the used hair extensions carefully using detergent, Dettol and hot water. She says most of her customers trust her to wash the hair well, although a few like to clean it themselves as well. Her customers say as long as the hair has been cleaned, they don't mind where it's from, since, after all, the hair looks new.
According to the current state of affairs in these COVID-19 times, getting your hair done is like trying to buy new hair from the shop. It makes more sense, but we must get our hair made.
Wanja is among many in the beauty industry trying to make ends meet through this dump site, even if it means putting herself and her customers at risk of contracting not only COVID-19, but other communicable diseases as well.
Everyone who comes to pick hair that has been disposed of picks it and goes to sell it so that they can earn a living. Here at our industry, at our dump site, we cannot allow someone to get it without a mask. That is the first thing. Even if you look around, we're all wearing masks. When we're breaking off for lunch, we must wash our hands and sanitize.
Despite dump site officials insisting that the areas are sanitized, the situation is worrying to say the least. One has to wonder, has the pandemic come with poor sanitization practices, or has it highlighted a problem that already existed? Terry Wangari, CGTN.
A Tanzanian small-scale miner who became an overnight millionaire in June has sold another gem for $2 million. Saninu Laser previously sold 2 rough Tanzanite stones valued at $3.4 million in a June discovery. This latest third discovery weighed 6.3 kilograms. Tanzanite is one of the rarest gemstones and is only found in Tanzania. Geologists estimate the supply may be entirely depleted within the next 20 years. The stone's appeal lies in its variety of hues, including green, red, purple, and blue. Its value is determined by rarity. The finer the color or clarity, the higher the price.
I'm begging my fellow miners that we should be patriotic, follow the rules and regulations, and commit ourselves to work hard so that we may prosper.
We Tanzanians have decided that minerals should first benefit us as a country. It's enough for us being brokers to others and let our minerals go and benefit others while our communities remain poor. For example, in many mining areas, business has gone up. Even in areas where there was no business, things have now changed.
Argentina has reached an agreement with major creditors over restructuring an estimated $65 billion sovereign debt. This breaks the deadlock in talks expected to help the country climb out of default and remove fears of a damaging legal standoff. The country has also agreed to adjust some payment dates and legal clauses to sweeten its final proposal made in early July. The finance ministry says it would extend the deadline to August 24th for creditors to accept the new deal. Argentina fell into its 9th sovereign default in May, and it's headed for an estimated 12% economic contraction this year on the back of 2 years of recession.
For Argentina, the agreement we have reached means $37.7 billion less that we will have to pay in the next 10 years. If we take into account that Argentina had committed to paying over the next 5 years, that relief is $42.5 billion. Do you know what this means? That we have recovered autonomy so that we can allocate resources, so that many Argentinians can have their homes, so that many entrepreneurs can access credit and boost production in Argentina, so that by boosting production, we can recover employment. We have recovered autonomy of decision.
In the UK, charity shops are struggling to deal with the number of donations they are receiving. This is after people have cleared out their homes during lockdown. Many of the 11,000 stores are cautiously reopening but still face losses as they deal with limited opening hours, cleaning expenses, and the loss of many volunteers. Catherine Drew reports.
This is the result of lockdown clearouts. Piles of donations that must be quarantined for 48 hours. Staff at the superstore belonging to international relief charity Oxfam have been inundated, forcing them to turn donations away.
Behind me is just half of the donations we've had this morning in an hour and a half. So we've had 370 bags and boxes, and pre-lockdown that would be about 2 days worth of donations just in an hour and a half.
Few charity shops have the luxury of this kind of space, and all must face up to multiple challenges as they cautiously reopen. Increased cleaning and hygiene routines with fewer volunteers to handle the workload. This Oxfam branch now has a quarter of the number of volunteers it did before, with many particularly older volunteers unable to return.
Oxfam's invested heavily in PPE, so we provide all our staff and volunteers with masks, gloves, hand sanitizer. To do that across our state is very costly to the charity, and obviously because of the reduced number of volunteer hours and the extra measures we've got in place, a lot of our shops are not opening their full trading hours as they were pre-lockdown. So we're kind of hit from both sides, that our sales are lower and also our costs are higher at the moment.
Charity shops are a staple of the British High Street, with 11,000 across the country raising close to $400 million for their organisations. Some charities have warned they won't be able to reopen all their stores. But some in the sector are more optimistic the shops will resume their role in the community.
A few shops might not be able to reopen, possibly because of social distancing or other concerns. But our view is that that's likely to be substantially less than 10% of the network that will have to close. There is a bit of a short-term concern, a sort of bit of a cloud on the horizon, which is a shortage of volunteers.
The Charity Retail Association has launched an online platform to match would-be volunteers with charities in a bid to boost numbers. Oxfam worker Kathy Clark, who oversees the book section, says she was happy to return and recommends volunteering to others if they are able.
It might give them a new role, which I think something purposeful, which just makes you feel that bit better, rather than kind of wasting your time and wondering what on earth the future brings for you. You can fill your time with something that helps somebody somewhere.
With a quarter of their earnings lost for the year and ongoing challenges, many charity shops are hoping that along with all the donations, customers also return. Oxfam and other charities are keen to stress that people can return to shop in their stores with confidence, knowing that strict precautions have been taken to keep them safe from the virus. Catherine Drew, CGTN in Oxford.
And coming up in sports, we focus on strength and agility sports in our special series on the postponed Tokyo Olympic Games.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Sports is not all about the physical. It's also a calculation of the next move with precision. All the athletes in the Olympics pose unmatched skill, strength and prowess. But what sets them apart is their mastery of how to combine tact with the twists and turns. CGTN's Richard Cyril Ntar joins us with the second installment of CGTN Africa Special Series 2020 Olympics Dreams Live On.
Yes, indeed. For a special group of athletes, strength and agility is the name of the game. And like all those who qualified for the Tokyo 2020 Games, these sports persons have been forced to flex their muscles for another year. Let's find out what they've been up to and the challenges they've had to face to remain in shape. Despite being injured and forced to retire after only 2 throws at the Rio 2016 Javelin Finals, Julius Yego did enough to leave Brazil with an Olympics silver medal. Well, having struggled with form since, the pioneering Kenyan athlete whipped himself back to shape only for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics to be postponed. Our correspondent CGTN Sadiq Shaban brings us more.
The last few months have been unprecedented for Julius Yego. Even for a professional athlete used to the elements, he's been forced to adjust drastically to the new reality.
I'm confined to my compound, just to training. And yes, when Corona came, that was in March, of course, when the first case was reported in Kenya, and then everything was closed, schools were closed, stadiums were closed. So I say maybe the best place, the safest place for me to be with my children and families to stay home. So we left Nairobi and then we came home. So this is the place I've been. And it's been hell, you know. At the first 2 months, I had no place to train. I was just in my compound with my family.
The 2015 World Javelin Champion has been using his new set of gym equipment recently donated by the Athletics World Governing Body. Working out at home has attracted enthusiasm from his youngest supporter and son, Finn Keegan.
You know, sometimes when I'm doing this kind of training here at home, and then, you know, it reaches a point where I want to take a bit of rest. He will come and tell me, no, Daddy, fanya, fanya. So he encourages me as well, and I think maybe he will follow my footsteps when he grows up. And he is forever with me whenever I'm doing anything. As you can see now, I'm sure he doesn't know what is happening, but he knows that there must be something going on here. He's always jovial and encouraging.
What Diego got for us in the third. Oh, he's really chucked himself at that. Oh, hello. That's way beyond...
Popularly known as a YouTube athlete, Julius Yego stormed to the top of the game in the world 5 years ago during the World Athletics Championships in Beijing, China. The last 4 years have been the best of his life so far, before 2020 changed everything. The African Games champion has found himself isolated and lonely. He has become his own coach once again, spending time training days on end, alone in this vast sporting facility.
You know, we're just training to keep our bodies, you know, get used to the real thing. Like for me, I have to train, you know, coming here to throw javelin, just not to lose that rhythm and, you know, and not to lose my technique. Because now we can't train in the stadium because of the rules we have, because of Corona. And yeah, I enjoy this training alone in such this big, you know, field, very beautiful, and just training alone, a very big social distance for myself.
In the finals of the javelin throw at the last Olympic Games in Brazil, Yego's throw of 88.24 meters was his first and best attempt, but also his last before he was injured. He settled for silver medal behind Germany's Thomas Roller. He wanted more this year before the Olympic Games were postponed.
I'm looking forward to next year, you know, having a very good season, ending in a very high note in Olympics. So I'm just looking forward to next year. I think it will be a special year for me. I have that confidence that I will come back again stronger with big performance.
Until the 2021 Olympic Games begin in Japan as rescheduled, Julius Yego will spend the next 1 year sharpening his skills and turning his focus towards history. Having been sidelined from the sport by the outbreak of coronavirus pandemic in 2020, the Kenyan javelin champion knows only too well that his aim can only be sky high. In the game of throws in Africa, no one knows best about the sticks than the current African javelin champion, Julius Yego. The former world champion, who is also the reigning Olympic silver medalist, says he's fully recovered from a nagging hip injury and is looking forward to a golden upgrade in the 2021 Olympic Games in Japan. Sadiq Shaban, CGTN, at the Eldoret Sports Club in Kenya.
We spoke to our correspondent, Sadiq Shaban, who joins us from the University of Champions, Iten, Kenya, to tell us his experience documenting these remarkable athletes, the unique challenges they face, and their thoughts on the postponed Tokyo 2020 Olympics.
So on one hand, you have Kenyans who have qualified for Olympic Games waiting a year to compete, and those who haven't qualified for Olympic Games saying the year out of Olympic Games is sufficient time to give them enough time to qualify and improve their performance going into the rescheduled games in 2021.
Right, Sadiq, speaking of 2021, let's talk more about the psychology of the athletes. What are their thoughts and feelings about the upcoming 2021 Olympics?
Richard, I spoke to some athletes the few days I've been here, and some were pretty much you know, disappointed earlier on when they heard the president of International Olympics Committee, Thomas Bach, saying that the spread of coronavirus into Africa was one of the reasons for the postponement of the game. So they felt a little bit, unsure about those comments, particularly targeting Africa. So they're saying they're not so sure whether they're looking forward in some respect to their rescheduled games, because it appears as if the postponement of the games in March didn't have their interest at heart per se. But that as it may, some are actually looking forward to a better organized games and particularly better African qualifying tournaments for the 2021 games.
Let's talk about your experiences. You had been forced to postpone your shoot for the stories a couple of times. As a reporter, what challenges did COVID-19 pose to you while pursuing your stories? And generally, what is the challenge of content creation during a pandemic?
Richard, we've been here just very few days, and as you mentioned, we initially began planning for the trip down here in June, would you believe it? And it's not until last week that we were able to secure, our travel here. And the reasons really are quite abnormal, if you will, the new normal, as they say. First of all, Richard, it was very difficult to get appointments for interviews and get approval to meet the athletes, because as I mentioned, the athletics camps are closed, so athletes broke camp and some moved out of these areas and went back to their rural homes. And Richard, we had situations where we made phone calls that were never answered, and we sent text messages that were never replied to by athletes who were fearing, what the many unknowns about coronavirus. As you know, it's still a learning curve for a lot of people, so they were not very sure how to engage with us. So as a content producer and as a content generator, it becomes very difficult when you're not able to get into that one-on-one space or, a close space with athletes. In an instance, we got a feedback from one athlete who told us, please bring your COVID-19 certificate, testing certificate, for us to be sure that you're okay. And we had to really look back at what that meant in terms of a new realities. But the opportunities that present itself also for us as professionals is to learn to cope and to do with what is presented to us at this particular time of the coronavirus pandemic.
All right, Sadiq Shaban, excellent reporting. Thank you for that update and report. Speak to you soon. On today's special segment, Olympics in History, we take a look at the first African country to ever participate in the Olympics.
Cameroon, first time they've been represented in Olympic competition, makes their appearance here dressed in their native costumes of the Cameroons.
Did you know, before independence, Africans participated under the flags of their respective colonial powers? But in the 1960s, more African countries joined the Olympic Games. This is because many African states were attaining their independence.
It only remains for me to present to you, Mr. Prime Minister, these constitutional instruments which establish Kenya's independence.
Currently, African countries have been long-time members of the modern Olympic Games. So which was the first African country in the Olympics and in which year? South Africa was the first to participate in the Olympic Games in 1908 officially. But the country was banned from the Olympics in 1964 due to apartheid. For 30 years, the country did not participate in Olympics up until 1990, when negotiations to end apartheid commenced. Since then, South Africa has continued to send many sportsmen and women into the Olympics, and in the postponed Tokyo 2020 Games, South Africa ranked the first in Africa with the majority of participants.
Since the late Robert Wangila won boxing gold at the Seoul 1988 Games, no other Kenyan has scaled those heights except in athletics to bring the country Olympic glory. At the ripe age of 38, Nick Okoth still aspires to mint gold at Tokyo 2020, having secured a return to the Olympics 12 years after his debut at the Beijing 2008 Games. CGTN's Dorothy Chow documents his journey.
A journey to book a ticket to the Tokyo Olympics starts with hard work, determination, and pushing yourself an extra mile each day. For Nick Okoth, the journey entails pushing yourself extra. This will be his second Olympics after going to the Beijing Olympics in 2008. That time, he was eliminated early, but this time, he was eyeing a better success story. However, while coming back from the qualifying games, the news of the coronavirus struck him.
When we came back from Senegal, we got to the airport and people were being screened. Christine Ogare went first and we started laughing at her. We didn't know at the time what was going on. When I got home, after about 2 days, that's when I heard that the games in Europe had been cancelled due to COVID. At the time, I kept wondering what this COVID was. I came to understand it well a few weeks back and I thank God for letting me qualify.
For a military man, however, he didn't suffer much as other boxers fully relied on the sport. The Defense Forces have tasked the former African boxing champion with one job: to train in order to medal at the Olympics.
There's one of my bosses at the military known as Carol Magori. She came to a boxing fight once and realized that boxing is not all about strength, it's a science. Anytime she sees me, she calls me a scientist. She has always been very supportive. She told me that due to this corona that I should go home and focus on my training, and that is what I've been doing ever since.
A dream to match Robert Wangila's performance at the Olympic Games by winning a gold medal has been his biggest drive throughout Okoth's career.
I want Wangila to rest in peace. I always pray to God to help me get the gold because we have really mentioned his name. Whenever people die, we say rest in peace. I don't think Wangila has rested in peace, and I think he is waiting for another person to take the boxing gold medal.
Nick Okoth is a man on a mission, not only to represent his country at the now postponed Olympics, but also to give a good showing for his brothers in the army who are always urging him on from wherever in the world they are in. Chamhono, CGTN.
And that'll do it for this special coverage of The Olympic Dream Lives On. Join us tomorrow to see how Africa's athletes are coping and training during these COVID-19 times. Back to you in studio.
And that's where we'll leave it on Africa Live for now. Remember, you can send your feedback to the contacts on the screen and follow us on our digital media platforms. I'm Peninah Karibe. Thank you for watching.